All right. Well, I've been giving a little public service announcement the last few weeks. I'll do it again. Uh, you don't have a soul. You are a soul. Just let that sink in. And we've been working on basically a kind of continuing class in the vocabulary of the soul. And so we'll uh, add some nuance to that today. But the major part of the talk will head that way because it'll be about artificial and real intelligence. We hear a lot about AI, I think it's time to talk about that a little bit. So that's where we're going today. All right, I'll try to get my thing set here. First of all, the screensaver is by a lovely woman out in California who does watercolors on the coast of California, and I find it very meditative, her work. And then the music was from Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Heart Club Band by the Beatles, and it was the first song that actually I think George Harrison ever got. It's the only song of his on that collection, Within You and Without You. And I wanted to end with that because that's where we've been going. That's where the hero's journey goes that we've been talking about. The hero's journey is the journey of the soul, what you are. We're all called to heroism and to go within yourself, to actually explore that territory. That's what it means to be a hero. And here's just a couple of the verses of the song. He says, "We were talking about the love that's gone so cold, and the people who gain the world and lose their soul. They don't know. They can't see. Are you one of them?" That's the third verse of that song. We're talking about the love that's gone so cold and the people who gain the world and lose their soul. They don't know. They can't see. Are you one of them? Yeah. So George, I think, had some great lyrics still to write, and he did that after the Beatles sort of fell apart, which reminds me that the next sometimes great things happen when things fall apart. Actually, always great things happen when things fall apart, if you can go with it. And so the next Saturday retreat, next Saturday, 14th, will be on that topic. What you do when things fall apart. How does the soul react when things fall apart, as opposed to the ego? So that'll be the what the major talk will be about. And if you don't know about the Saturday Dancing with Spirit, we just have a little bit more in-depth talk, and then we have a couple of longer meditation periods, and then the community at the end. It goes for about 4.5 hours with breaks in between, of course. So that's good. That'll be the theme when things fall apart, which they will. Doesn't matter who you are, doesn't matter what empire you are, things fall apart. And if you know what to do then something better and newer will come to be. And so we'll be in that terrain next time. Now, also, I'm going to put the screensaver up just for a minute, just so we can get a little vocabulary from that. I can find it here because I think there's something to meditate on just with the screensaver. So maybe we can draw some nuanced vocabulary about the three things that it's very hard to actually talk about. Words are like fingers pointing to the moon. They're the voice of the heart, but still they just point. They aren't the thing. But so we're talking about, let's talk about three big realities: reality of the spirit itself, the reality of the soul, and then the reality of the personality. Uh, I think you can see all three in this picture. It's an ocean picture, of course. And so that would be an image of, we'll get to the other words for this, but what the spirit is. It's the one that encompasses the all. We've divided up oceans, the ocean on this planet, into 6 or 7 oceans, we call them. But really, when you view it from outer space, a bigger perspective, maybe a deeper perspective, you just see it's one ocean. So the ocean is the one. And then there's billions and trillions of waves in the ocean. That's a pretty good working definition of what a lot of traditions call the soul. It's the manifestation of the one, the many. So the Taoists talk about the one and the many, and how they're never disconnected, because you can never disconnect a wave from the ocean. It's all ocean all the time. So the spirit, the one, is the ocean. The waves are a manifestation of the ocean. Then if you look at the picture, you got an interesting thing. I'm just interpreting here, but that's why I picked it. You can see that little red speck down about 3/4 of the way down. And then if you look in the dark swath across the top, you see it looks like that where that speck came from. And it's now separated from the whole. That could be the personality. That's really what most traditions call the personality. It's what I call the personality. It's it's been separated out from the whole, and we mistake it for the whole. Be like if this little boat there, this little speck on the ocean, we take that to be the whole shebang. It's not. So the personality comes from the soul. It's meant to go back to the soul. I get a feeling of that. It's looking for that place it came from. These are just interpretations of, basically, this is a symbolic kind of picture. It's not representational. I think it's a lovely picture to talk about those three things: the spirit being the ocean, the soul being the many manifestations of it. I mean, we have 37 souls here in community right now. One spirit, though. Okay, and now we'll talk more about the heart, and how does the heart figure into this? The heart of heart to heart. We'll talk about that definitely a bit more when we talk about when things fall apart. Do you go to the personality, or do you go to what's known as the heart? We're going to have to talk a little bit more about that term heart with a capital H. But anyway, that might give you a little bit of information there, and a little bit of nuance in talking about spirit, soul, personality. And next week, a little bit more about the heart, how the heart fits into all that. Okay, well, all right, that's a good start. Here's a poem. It's poems come out in different ways for me. This really is a kind of teaching poem. As I was reading all week and just mulling what I was reading and finding where it was leading into the talk, then I'll just start writing about it, and the writing turns into a poem. And the poem will be listed tomorrow as usual, plus a little bonus poem for the Monday. So this is a meditation on artificial intelligence and real intelligence. Depending on who you listen to, artificial intelligence, which they call AI, is going to be either the salvation or the destruction of civilization as we know it. I don't buy either interpretation. The mental intelligence, called the ego, created our personalities, the roles we play, and our superficial self. There's nothing wrong with our superficial self. Our superficial self is necessary for our survival in a world of time and space, but it's only a small part of who we are. Think of that little red fleck there in the painting. It's only a small place, small part of who we are. Our superficial self and its transactional intelligence is merely a facsimile of our essential self or soul. So AI, artificial intelligence, is really only a facsimile of a facsimile. What is never mentioned in all the op-eds about AI in the New York Times, and I read them all because I'm really interested, what's never mentioned is that there is a real intelligence. I call it RI. RI has gone by several different names throughout the ages. Great Mother, Spirit, Brahman, Buddha nature, the Tao, Yahweh, God, the Christ, Allah, and so on. But all of these are simply words, no more than fingers pointing towards the really real that is being itself. It's high time that we stop this homicidal nonsense of fighting wars over which finger is the one true finger, which title is the one true title, and spend the rest of our lives becoming acquainted with our real intelligence. If we're lucky, this acquaintance could evolve into friendship, and that friendship could evolve into intimacy with the really real. This evolution is energized by the daily practice of some form of meditation. So keep showing up to experience the naked now of being itself. And if you are patient and faithful to your practice, you will inevitably experience a shift in your center of gravity from the personality to the soul, from a facsimile of life to a real life. And despite what the artificial intelligence of Madison Avenue keeps telling us over and over and over and over again in commercial after commercial, a life filled with wisdom, compassion, and meaning is our birthright and our true longing. That pretty much says what I want to say. And I'm just going to double back and just highlight a couple of things, and then tomorrow you'll have the whole poem. If if you're resonating with it, if any part of it resonates, you can actually see it in print. Well, I don't buy this either or of AI. We're missing something when we divide things into even or. It's either the destruction or it's the salvation. If we do that, we're just using the mental egoic consciousness, because that divides things into either or. One thing is not like the other, as they sing on Sesame Street. I just remember that one. And they'd show a cat and a dog pictures, and one of these things is not like the other. And that's the brilliance and the way that the superficial egoic mind works. Okay, and there's nothing wrong with that. This is the mental intelligence that we call the ego. It created our personalities, the roles we play. We've talked about that over and over, how we had to play certain roles to get through our early part of our life. And the question is, at what point do we stop playing a role and do we start becoming real? That's the question. But there's nothing wrong with it. The superficial self is necessary for survival in a world of time and space. We're a taxpayer. That's a role. We're a citizen. That's a role. That's necessary in a a governmental setup in any kind of organization of human life, if it's whether it's a tribe or a village or a country of 360 million people. We have roles. It's our, and that's not bad, but it's only a small part of who we are. So you're a citizen. If you're a proper citizen, you vote for who you think should be running this country. Okay, things like that. Nothing wrong with it. Our superficial self is the essence of a transactional intelligence. How we make transactions, and if you don't have a good one, you can make all sorts of bad transactions. Yeah, but it's only a facsimile of what some traditions call the essential self. Merton called it the true self. Other traditions call it the soul. These are all words we throw at. There's something deeper. See, there's something deeper that we really are. And that has to do, when you get involved with that, you move from a transactional realm, which is on the surface of things, we have to do it, to a transformational realm. When you get more in touch with the essential self, the soul. So if we talk about machines artificially making a facsimile, that's where the word fax machine came from, by the way. It means you make a model of something that's like that, but it's not that. Facsimile of something. Well, the personality and our transactional mental egoic mind, superficial self, personality, that's just a facsimile of something deeper. And so when the machines make a facsimile of that, I mean, they have machines that, you're writing a college paper and you want to have the machine help you write the paper, and you want to, use the language of Abraham Lincoln doing the Gettysburg Address. Well, they can do that. I don't know what college is going to be like now, or teaching writing or college would be like now, but it can do that. It can make a facsimile. Yeah. So AI is really only a copy of a copy, a facsimile of a facsimile. And it can be misused. It can be used for good, but it's not. It won't have any bearing on transformation, on you becoming who you're meant to be. Here's a poem by Jennifer Payne Wellwood, who's married to John Wellwood, who they're both great therapists, and they both were amongst the initial group of, I think, 13 students who began in Vermont with Chogyam Trungpa. Pema was one of those. Reggie Ray was one of those. And Jennifer and John Wellwood were two more of those. And this is just a real short poem. It's called The Jewel Inside. This, when we talk about the essential self, what you really are, a lot of traditions use a jewel, a precious gem, you see. When Jesus talked, he talked about the pearl of great price buried in a field, by the field, Well, this is a short poem. It's just got 6 lines, but I think it gives you another image, which is powerful, I think, of what there is to look for here. The jewel inside has grown dusty. What out there could have captured you so that you forgot all about this one? The jewel inside has grown dusty. What out there could have captured you so that you forgot all about this one? Feel the tragedy of that error. The jewel inside has grown dusty. What out there could have captured you so that you forgot all about this one? Feel the tragedy of that error, and see, even now, the tears of your grief are washing the dust away. Feel the tragedy of that error, and even now, the tears of your grief are washing the dust away. Grief is so misunderstood, or not even understood at all. It's not taught about. I mean, I'm in the teaching profession formally, in classrooms, and I had a young guy who was a classroom. He was the second guy who was ever in this. I was the only man for a long time at this junior high in Bardstown, and this young guy came in to be teaching second grade, and he came up one time, knocked on my door during my off period and his off period, and his name was Matt. And he came in and he said, "You got a minute?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "I got a question, and I just sent you're the only guy that would know the answer." So I said, "Okay." And they said, "My father just died in Buffalo. I'm not very close to him, but it's really, I don't know what to do with it." He says, "You have some hint?" And I said, "Well, that's you have to grieve it." And he said, "What's that?" I mean, he's a guy who'd been through the whole educational system, was teaching other young kids, and he said, "Well, what's that?" And so I gave him the David Whyte poem, "The Well of Grief," and read it to him. And then I said, "Well, we'll keep checking in about this." I said, "It's what the natural response to losing something. It's the most common human experience of all, because we all lose something all the time. Material objects, friends, people, our innocence." And Jennifer Wellwood's talking about the fact that we lost something we didn't even know we lost. But then you gradually start to understand that you've been uh, pretending to be something for decades of your life. And as you get older, you wonder who you really are. You realize you don't know. But the traditions are saying it's there. The diamond that has grown dusty, maybe even buried under, tons of BS. And then you start to, it said, though, that, the grieving for it and the search for it is still there. It's what the second half of life, or the third act of life, is about, really. That's the hero's journey. So it's high time that we stop, this homicidal nonsense of fighting wars over religion, or over beliefs, or over systems of economies, and spend what we have little. I'm 73. What do I have left of my life? I don't know. If you're 33, who knows that you have more than 1 week? You don't know. But I'm definitely want to spend the rest of my life becoming more acquainted with this real intelligence that's within me. And if you're lucky, what I've been working to is to become more friendly with it. Go even beyond acquaintance. I've been doing this 50 years. I feel like it's a kind of friendly relationship now. And then that can actually go to become a more intimate relationship with being itself, with this whole shebang all around us. It means becoming more friendly with the trees on your property, with the soil. And if we're lucky, that'll happen. Become intimate with life itself. Now, what we'll be doing in a minute or two is we'll practice together a meditation, which essentially, and this is just one sitting meditation. It's just one form of meditation. As you guys studying mindfulness know, there's a lot of different. That mindfulness is meditation on foot, on the fly, okay, on the hoof. That's great too. And then the writing is a kind of a meditation for me. There are many types of meditation, and if you're committed to this, and all of them energize this and nourish this journey to become more intimate with real life. And we live in a kind of crazy culture here. It's taken over the planet, unfortunately. But now we're going to add artificial intelligence. So you can see a commercial with 20 Taylor Swifts in it. But I mean, after a while, what's real, what isn't? But they keep telling us over and over again what we want. And then, we click, and in 3 days you get it, or in 1 day you get it if you pay extra. But it's not really what you want. Might need, might be an object you need, but what do we really want? Well, the traditions that I'm a part of, that I find nurturing, they'd say what we really want is a life filled with wisdom. That's different than knowledge. Knowledge isn't bad, but wisdom is a whole other level. Wisdom is a holistic kind of look at all this. Every 10 years we get twice as much information in our heads than we had 10 years before. That's information. That's data. It's not wisdom. A life filled with wisdom, compassion, and meaning. Those three things: wisdom, compassion, and meaning. Wisdom and compassion are what Jesus called love. The Buddhists break them down: wisdom, compassion, and meaning. The older you get, the more meaning becomes the coin of the realm. And if you don't have it, there's some grief. And that it's our birthright. A life like this of wisdom and compassion and meaning is our birthright. Being born in this universe as a human being, you're born with it, but it all has to be found. That's why Jesus is one of the masters of giving images about finding and not finding. Why are you hiding the lamp under a basket? And then he says, you go looking until you find. Seek and you shall find. You know, buy the treasure hidden in the field. He's got all these images. He says, you have eyes, but you don't see. So a life filled, this is what hangs in the balance. And a meditative practice, many meditative practice. The people I've been working with now for, some of you sitting out there, for more than 20 years, you've assembled various meditative practices in your toolbox. And then every day you engage in these. And then gradually that center of gravity, from being so identified with the personality, with the roles, with success or failure, your career, all that has a certain level of importance. But when you retire, there's no career, you're just this human being there. Then is there wisdom? Is there compassion? And is there meaning in that life? Ask yourself that. And that's what Rumi writes about. Rumi is the poet of longing. He's longing, always longing. There's a longing in human beings. You might remember the poem "Love Dogs." they're they're longing for something that the culture, even his culture, wasn't serving up. Certainly, our culture's not serving up. You cannot find wisdom, compassion, or meaning on Amazon for 1995. You can't find them. Yeah, you find them by taking the journey. So I think that's good enough for now.